Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Chris Lashley. Hello, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been like, I have a list of people that I want on the podcast, and I was like, oh, I should probably start booking some people for the podcast soon, because it's like I'll like record a whole bunch, and then as that backlog like starts catching up to me, it's like, oh shit, I gotta like get more of these now. I scrolled down my list and I was like, maybe.
Scroll down your list and you say, there's Johnny. I did to him. Oh, hey, there's another one of those bastards.
No, it was like, oh, nice. But I was like, oh, Chris. Hell yeah, Chris. So I was like excited.
We had a lot of nice intellectual conversations when we went to school together at the ACM too. Yeah. Because we were in the same year for production, right?
I think so.
We were in Dustin Ragland's class together.
Yeah, Advanced Ableton.
Man, that class was so eye-opening. Yeah. I didn't know anything until I was in that class.
And I mean, coming from Dustin, who's like mad genius brain,
Ableton extraordinaire.
Yeah. And so like some of that wisdom has trickled its way down into some of his students, and so we're still doing cool electronic stuff. So
take 10% of Dustin's wisdom, and you can spin a magical web with it.
Oh yeah, no, and he's leaving to Atlanta.
Oh really? I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Oh well, shoot. So he's like the reason why monome is such a big part of my music right now. Yeah. Because when we were in that class together, everybody had, a push or a launch pad. Mm-hmm. And then I show up in this class with this like walnut box and this monome 64, and it doesn't speak MIDI. And Dustin put in the time and effort to help me make the thing work and made this little instrument work for me. And I don't think that he knew of mono much before that. And he suddenly got his hands on one. He almost immediately understood it and helped me understand it like fully. And so now he has a monome. He got one a couple years after that.
Wow.
He has a monome 128, and he like writes his own Max for Live stuff and does his own compositions and is totally blowing me out of the water with what he can do. But I really we need to have a monome meetup, and he and I need to sit down with his 128 and my 64 sometime and have a little jam, hopefully before he leaves.
Yeah. This just became the like we love Dustin hour, but yeah.
He's a sweet guy. He does a lot for the community.
Yeah, he really does. Chris, who are you? What do you do?
Oh, right, me. I'm Chris Lashley. I'm a producer. I'm a guitarist, first and foremost, for Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards. I sing backgrounds for them, too. For a long time, for years, I did just acoustic singer-songwriter stuff. I did work with Jason Scott, and we had a little trio with Jason Scott, Mallory Eagle, and I did the dulcets. Linka was in that for just a little bit too. So did the acoustic set thing for a while, and now I'm looking at electronic music. I really like lo-fi hip hop. Yeah. These days, I think a lot of people are going to start producing that right now, but I'm doing it in just kind of my own way. So it makes me happy. It's very cathartic to make a relaxing beat. And afterward, you're like, yeah, I'm satisfied and I'm relaxed.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, one pattern that I've seen through a lot of musicians is that there's like the stuff that other people want you to do, and then there's the stuff that like you really enjoy doing, and that's where like you really actually see the person shine with like, yeah, I mean, I like this stuff, but like this is what I'm really here for. And it's like, oh wow, you're making really cool stuff now. It's like, really? Because this is just what I wanted to do. And I feel like that's
And all of the projects that I've been in, is I always felt like, oh, I just really want to do this. When I was with the dulcets and doing acoustic stuff, I really wanted to do that. When I was in Them Hounds and doing blues rock stuff, I really wanted to do that. And now I'm in Johnny Manchild. I just have bad ADD. I just really want to do a lot of music stuff.
That's not a bad thing.
But I got to focus on some things. So right now I'm focusing on the lo-fi hip hop stuff and Johnny Manchild stuff. Yeah. I haven't been playing much acoustic lately.
Cool. Well, let's just start with the basics. How did you first get started in music?
I started singing "Oh Christmas Tree" in the back of my parents' car before I could talk. So I couldn't sing the words, but it was like da da ba, My mom's like, is that the song we were just singing? Yeah. So I've been singing since before I could talk. I've had a little music studio since, I could afford one right after a video game console. It was a little mixing desk, and I started recording stuff on some software called like Mixcraft. So as soon as I could start producing with a computer, and I understood how to do that when I was 10 or 12, started recording stuff in my friends' houses and finding other musicians and recording them, because you can't, it's hard to record yourself and play the thing at the same time when you're 11.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting path, because I feel like whenever you first give a child an instrument, it's just like, instrument, play it. But this other layer of also recording it and making it sound at all, that's something else. What did that, I guess, do for you?
The first time that happened, I picked up a guitar for the first time when Jack Black came out with School of Rock, and that fantastic moment when they're teaching each other he's teaching them how to play Smoke on the Water. And I'm like, I could totally do that. So I picked up my guitar and I totally did that. And I'm like, check this out. I wasn't at my parents' house. I was at my friend's house. And so he had like a crummy tape recorder. We recorded it. Boom. Showed my parents. And they're like, awesome, you're getting an electric guitar. Because they really wanted me to learn piano because of the ADHD and the stuff and all that stuff. They really needed me to have an outlet. So they were really excited to get me an instrument.
Yeah. So is guitar your primary instrument?
Guitar is definitely my primary instrument. I'm not too useful on keyboards. I understand what's going on. I can play a little piano if I need to. I know my basics, but it's not something that I could write a song on.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
but guitar I can. Bass too. I can do a little bass. I can do bass. Bass definitely translate with guitar. I can play some ukulele because I worked at Guitar Center, and you can lean up against a wall and play the ukulele in the acoustic room at Guitar Center as an employee. So you learn like ukulele at Guitar Center. And what else? There was a dulcimer hanging up at the wall at Guitar Center, a banjo. So I can pick up a string instrument and play it, but I can't really look at a keyboard and play it. Yeah. I finger drum. I can drum with my fingers. I can't drum with sticks so good though.
I guess you said instrument with strings, bows, anything?
Fretless stuff I'm not as good at. So violins, you don't want to hear me play a violin. I can play an upright bass, but it's not going to be very pretty. That's a lot of movement.
It is. It's a lot of instrument.
Those upright bass players, they're buff, man. That's a lot of arm movement. I get sore.
And they have to carry the thing around too.
No kidding. Except for what we were talking about earlier is the little micro bass. What we were talking about offset earlier is that I'm gonna have a micro bass come in, which is a little short scale like ukulele style bass, and it's fretless, and it has these giant tubular strings, and it somehow sounds like an upright bass even though it's like a quarter of the size. Yeah.
We'll see like 400 lo-fi beats with that bass thing and
bass-a-lele.
Yeah. Okay, so after your parents give you a guitar, what was your trajectory? Was it the music of your time, or was it all the stuff that you had in lessons? Were you taking lessons?
I didn't take very many lessons. I took one official lesson that was paid for, of course, by my parents. And I'm not very good at reading tab. I'm not very good at, I can read music pretty well and sight sing very well, but I can't read music and translate to the guitar very well. But I totally lost track of the question. Sorry. First guitar lesson. I went to this poor guitar teacher's house, and he started going through the chord shapes with me, and I caught onto the chord shapes pretty easily. Next lesson, bar chords, and then he was like, yeah, bar chords, scales, you can do scales and bar chords already. You've just learned your chord shapes. I picked that all up very quickly. The rudimentary stuff, no problem. But putting stuff together myself, I had a really hard time learning how to write on the guitar, and I had a really hard time learning how to sing and play at the same time on guitar. That took me like, I don't know why. That took me like 3 years, and sometimes still I'll have trouble with certain rhythms singing and playing on guitar. After the second guitar lesson with that poor guitar teacher, he gave me a Beatles songbook.
Nice.
That had tab and chords written out, and then it had pictures of the hands.
Wow, yeah.
And it was a big, thick manifesto of Beatles songs. And he never saw me again. I had what I needed.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could just like learn every Beatles song and get what you need to like.
I learned how
guitar.
I learned how to fingerpick just by doing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds onto Blackbird, and then I'm like, I can do 2 different finger picking patterns. All right.
Yeah. So I guess what was the music that you were listening to, influenced by maybe even your parents, or that was your foundation?
Definitely more classic rock. My mom spoon-fed me Creedence Clearwater Revival and Three Dog Night. My dad, Prince and Carlos Santana. And then, I don't know. I loved just like 70s hippie rock. I got a Volkswagen bus as soon as I could.
Yeah, you were raised for guitar.
Kind of was, a little bit. My parents were very supportive of my musical career. I'm very blessed to have them.
So then where is your music? At what point, like, there's the music that your parents listen to, and then, you're a kid and you just listen to that. But then there's a point where, like, there's your music, and then that's the stuff that makes them angry. So what were you listening to?
I was a 13, 14-year-old kid writing about heartbreak immediately. My first song was called The Fall, and it was about the first time I ever got broke up with. And I was doubting God in that song.
Beautiful.
I was very naive, but it's not a bad song. So
yeah, there you go. Do you still know it?
I still know it. I'll play it right now.
Oh, geez.
Is that allowed?
An exclusive? Yeah. It might not sound great because it's dynamic mic.
I'll just do a little bit. Oh, the pedestal it falls. Oh, the love I treasured in all my life and heart are gone. It's like real emo.
That's really good. Like that still holds up as far as, if like, oh, let me hear like a original emo song. It's like, yep, there it is. There he is. So what were you listening to? What made you write that? And
that's actually great. At the time I was listening to like Pretty Odd by oh my gosh,
Panic at the Disco.
Thank you, Panic at the Disco. I almost blanked on their name. Yeah, I was listening to Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco at the time, and Sadie Hawkins Dance. Who did that one?
I'm blanking on that, but you actually mentioned Death Cab earlier. Were you into Death Cab then?
I was about to be introduced to Death Cab.
There you go.
About a year after that song, I was introduced to Death Cab for Cutie, and then the emo just took right off, and there was no controlling the emo phase. But I was also in football at the time, so actually there was controlling the emo phase, because otherwise I got beaten up.
Yeah. So yeah, keep going. What are the guilty pleasures, or maybe not so guilty anymore, just because we can listen to what we want now?
Oh man, Death Cab's not quite as emo as it used to be, are they? They're a lot more polished now. I still enjoy them, but I listen to the old stuff when I'm feeling moody. Yeah. That's my real big
Company Calls Epilogue is like, I performed that at a talent show.
Nice.
Like
That's awesome. I was saying I know a couple piano songs. What is it? Passenger Seat. That's like a very easy piano song for Death Cab, and that's like the song I can play on piano.
I thought you were gonna say What Sarah Said, which is like an extremely sad song, but like, yeah,
that one was a little bit too sad for the talent show that I played my Death Cab for Cutie song at, because I also played a Death Cab for Cutie song at a talent show, just that one on piano, and I will never play piano in public again. I had to stop, and that's the only time ever performing where I had to full on restart the song, because I I realized that I didn't know the piano well enough to start in the middle of the song. I lost where I was with my fingering. And so I just had to start over. Hey, you guys are going to put up with me. This is an open mic night. And they still clapped.
Yeah. What was your first performance?
Well, whenever there was this, when Twister came out, that movie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when that was. I wasn't very old, but the power went out, ironically, in the movie theater for about 20, 30 minutes before the movie was going to start, and everybody already paid for their ticket, and they just came in and were like, hey, we'll get the power back on in a second. Please remain in your seats. And I decided it was dance contest time, and I went up and I performed for those people in the theater. So they put a flashlight on me, and I was grooving for a solid 20 minutes of singing and dancing, just me in front of a whole movie theater about to watch Twister.
That's amazing.
I don't know how old I was for that, but my mom tells that story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
My first actual musical performance, though, I've done a lot of musical performances. I probably just go ahead and go back to First Presbyterian Church of Edmond when I first started playing in a real band, the church band. Yeah. And I felt so cool because I was the guitarist in a Christian rock band. Yeah. And I played at First Presbyterian Church of Edmond for 3 years in the youth band. Yeah. And that's where I got a lot of my, like, how does a rehearsal work? You know, how do you get through a rehearsal with 15, 14-year-olds? And that's pretty much commanding any rehearsal with any musicians is how do you command 15, 14-year-olds?
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen Rock 101 at School of Rock, but a
little bit.
Yeah, it is much more difficult.
I caught some of Johnny at the School of Rock doing his thing when he was there.
Yeah, no, I had to do that, and that's a very specific kind of torture.
I feel like you could just certain times whenever the children are first doing stuff at the School of Rock, you could like do psychological torture with some of the things that are born from that moment of kids getting to an instrument for the first time. And that's why parents are amazing and supportive for supporting their musicians.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There should be like a bottom limit for drums of an age.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
You have to be at least this old to sit in a drum throne. You cannot otherwise, because some kids should not.
I mean, but then you see these kids on YouTube that are so young and they're so good. Definitely better than me on the drums. And he's, how old is he? Six?
Right. Well, I don't know, but at least I don't want to have to be the one to teach them. Okay.
They all sounded bad at some point.
Yeah.
Every musician sounded bad at one point in their life.
That's true. Were you ever in a screamo band in like middle school?
I was very into a screamo band. Oh gosh, I'm so bad at remembering names of stuff, man. Isn't that the worst for this podcast? I was very Presbyterian until I was about 17. Yeah. And then I started disappointing my mother.
We will get into that.
So I was into this screamo band called Showbread.
Wow.
And they were hilarious dudes. And they happened to come to what is now the 89th Street Collective. Yeah. What was that place you used to
The Conservatory?
The Conservatory. Yeah, that's right. So back when it was the Conservatory, they were the first band I ever saw that put a projector on them as their light show. And they all lined up in a line at the front of the stage. And they didn't really have like a lot of room, not a lot of depth on the stage. So it was just projector and them, and they were rocking so hard. The projector screen's like moving, and they have like no room in the front of the stage. And oh man, they screamed really hard, and they had a guitar player who danced like so hard, like no performer I've ever seen dance. And it was screamo music, but he was shaking his hips like violently hard with that guitar, and I was just tickled by it. They were just my favorite.
That sounds like a great show. I've still, maybe there was still some probably like predatory on 16-year-olds. I mean, emo bands, screamo bands at the time, there was a lot of that. So Maybe not that. I don't know this band, but
I don't think the guitar stayed in the band. I don't know what happened.
But yeah. Anyways, moving forward, at what point did you decide, if it was a decision, that like music is what your life is now that you adult?
Music was not ever something that wasn't, because I was always singing. Even my grandparents were in their church choir, and they would always sing with me. We would always be singing Christian rock songs or hymns or Creedence Clearwater Revival or Three Dog Night around my house. Always singing all the time. Very annoying, I'm sure. And then as soon as I got a guitar, I just never put it down. I slept with it. I slept with my guitar all the time, especially while I was learning it, because I'd put it down, and I don't know why, if you do something as you're falling asleep, it just sticks in your memory, you know? So I would practice scales until I fell asleep.
Yeah, there's actually a thing where there's like a point where you're almost asleep. It's kind of a phase of hypnosis where like good ideas happen. And so that part of your sleep, you can like get yourself there and have like cooler ideas. That's
Very
something that like
the golden hour of your mind.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't actually know that.
I had a hypnosis guy on the podcast.
Oh, you had a hypnosis guy? Did you get hypnosized?
No, I try not to ask people to like do their job.
Fair enough.
At me whenever it's like, oh, you're a therapist, why don't you therapy me like for free?
Oh, you're a guitarist? Yeah, name 10.
Guitars or guitarists?
Either. Name 10.
But yeah, I guess like when you're leaving high school and you have to like decide on the thing, like for some reason we make 18-year-olds have a decision that will affect the rest of their life. That's a weird thing that we do as a society, but like, you know, were you just automatically like, yeah, music, do it?
Well, I was already doing it. So yeah, absolutely. And you know, I went and got a job at Hideaway Pizza.
Sure.
To, you know, help pay for the Volkswagen bus that was, you know, eating up my parents' garage space and a little bit of their money, because restoring an old car is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But as soon as I could in high school, we were doing the Battle of the Bands for Edmond North High School, which the first year that we did it, we won with that The Fall song. Yeah. That's what we got. If you win the Battle of the Bands, you get to go record. I think it was with RK1 Studios at the time. Okay. And so we got to go make a little single at RK1 Studios, and we recorded that song.
Does that exist on the internet somewhere?
No, it doesn't. It should. It does exist still on multiple people's computers. Yeah. But it existed on MySpace, and now it does not. Back in the MySpace days, that was actually before Facebook. Yeah.
It was a good time. Kind of a terrible time, but it was a good time, nostalgia vision wise.
Good time, not a long time.
Yeah.
It's fun to think about MySpace designing.
Yeah, dude. So I guess what are all of the, projects that you've been involved in since then, musically?
Well, after I left high school, I got accepted to a school in New Mexico, Santa Fe University of Art and Design, and while I was there, I was in at least 6 projects. Like I was in a funk band, I was in a folk band with a female lead singer. I did like a lead thing where I was the lead of like a 3-piece band. I did a gypsy jazz acoustic thing, and then I was doing like production there at the same time. I was going crazy while I was in Santa Fe. Yeah. My grades totally suffered because of it, and of course I was out drinking at night too in Santa Fe, New Mexico, being away from my friends and family for the first time. Yeah. Suddenly not a church boy anymore, going off to New Mexico, and people were like, "You're underage. Here's some alcohol." I would never underage drink. I would never do that. But my grades did suffer.
But at the same time, that's kind of what college is for. Not the drinking, but like the
branching out. Yeah,
branching out
like crazy.
Every single project that you can. Yeah,
and it really honed in what I wanted to do with my skill set and where I really belong with my skill set, because I was playing bass in a funk band and I couldn't hang. I was playing bass in a jazz band and I couldn't really hang. I could play guitar in either of those bands, and I could kind of hang, but I don't know. It's just something about bass ended up not agreeing with me. I gave it a genuine shot, and I felt a skill gap between that and guitar for some reason.
Funk is about the limit to where, like, if you pass funk on bass, like, you got it.
Definitely, it's definitely the final boss. And then you can play Wooten.
Yeah. Or Wooten will face you down himself.
He will give you the okay. He'll give you a phone call.
No, he actually seems like he's an extremely nice guy. So, what brought you back to Oklahoma?
That's a good story and a bad story. So my grades weren't doing so hot. I had this awesome VW bus out in New Mexico, feeling really cool in a bunch of projects. And then life hit really, really hard, really, really fast. First, at my parents' house, the hot water heater on my half of the house, where I still had quite a bit of studio stuff, it just exploded and flooded everywhere. That was a really big expense that my parents weren't accounting for. And then there were these expenses that my parents were accounting for, like my father needed a double knee replacement. And then at the same exact time, these three things happened in December, whenever I came home for Christmas. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and just all three of those things just hit like a truck. And it's like, okay, well, I need to focus up and do better for my parents because they're kind of disappointed in the way I've handled my schooling. So I should focus up. I moved home. I started going to UCO and just like knocking out credits. I got a job at Guitar Center, started help paying the bills. So now I'm back in Oklahoma, going to Guitar Center. Finances are looking kind of crummy. Health of my parents is looking kind of crummy. I sell my Volkswagen bus, help pay the bills, and keep everybody afloat. We're looking good now. Working at Guitar Center. Now my wife, my now wife, has moved in and is helping with my family and stuff too. And we actually get to be together because we were apart when I was in New Mexico, and we were just doing like Skyping all the time. Yeah. So we're all moved together in the same house again. I'm going to UCO. Things are going pretty well at Guitar Center. I've sold my bus, which I just miss so dearly. It was a big part of my life.
Yeah, I can tell. It's like
I really hope to have it again at some point. I sold it to someone who said that they would sell it back to me. Hopefully they do. I don't know. I wouldn't sell that bus back. It's a cool car. Yeah. So all that's happened. And while I'm at Guitar Center, I meet my friend PJ, Philip Eller. He was the guitarist for Them Hounds. And we ended up working together and becoming really good buds. And I joined that band with him, and things started to kind of normalize again. And my dad's all fixed up from his knee replacement. He's feeling good. He's got fresh knees. My mom is going through chemotherapy at this time, but it's looking pretty good. She's a very positive and very strong middle school teacher who is just genuinely inspiring. My mom is amazing, and I owe her everything. Yeah. I'm very proud of her for beating breast cancer. Yeah. So.
My mom had breast cancer as
really?
well. So, yeah. I know
that's rough, right?
Yeah.
Chemotherapy is torture.
Yeah. And moms still fucking power through and still mom all the time.
Like they hadn't gone through enough, and then they had to go through that too, and they still powered through. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so I'm there with you.
Haven't written the song about that yet. It's just too many emotions on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a song there.
So I guess after that, where I guess I'm trying to lead to like ACM. Where did?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So this is that exact moment.
Yeah.
Is my mom is on the up and up. Things are looking pretty good. And she's now doing lighter chemotherapy regimen. And I've finished 1 year of just doing credits through UCO. And I did credits in the summer as well. So I'm like, I had to make up for all of my schooling. Nothing from New Mexico transferred over. Yeah. So I did classes every summer. After the first year, I got accepted to the ACM at UCO. Yeah. And that was while I was doing them Hounds stuff too. So music's back in full swing now. The ACM was so cool, such a blessing. There were resources at the school that I went to in New Mexico, but not like at the ACM. Yeah. Like the ACM, every computer you go on has Pro Tools, and you're like, whoa, I can work anywhere. And that was a really cool realization versus I could either work at the computer lab or in the big studio at the other school that I was going to. So having those tools at your disposal, oh my gosh, all the producers at the ACM, just get on your phone and book time in your studio right now. Yeah.
I use the studio like decently. Mm-hmm. I still feel like I didn't use it enough.
Right? Because it's like, yes, I got my schoolwork done. I finished my school projects. I maybe did like one or two of the recordings I wanted to do outside of that, but I really should have made a whole album with the gear I had at my disposal It was just silly for me not to have done that. And like, you'll make an album as a project maybe, or an EP as a project, but it's different than sitting down with the gear, scheduling out your studio time and actually doing what you want to do with the studio without thinking about what you need to do and just kind of do it.
And the equipment too is
right,
of
course.
This is freaking,
and
I don't know,
and
like
$100,000
worth of equipment in a single room that you can just book for free. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, now they have like the 5.1 surround sound studio too, which they didn't have when you and I were there. Or they were finishing it when you and I were there, which was cool. So we got to learn how to set that stuff up because they were setting it up. But I mean, I would really like to work in a real 5.1 studio anytime I want. ACM sounds good again.
You're good. You don't need it right now. We really just don't need the debt. That's really the...
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. So you went for production, not performance.
I went for production, not performance, which on paper, my degree says bachelor's in applied science. Yeah, same. Which sounds pretty professional.
My resume, I just say contemporary music production.
I do too. I have my professional resume, which says bachelor's in applied science, and then I have my music resume, which says contemporary audio production. Yeah.
Well, I put music production on there because like that's what it was. There was like some just audio stuff, but it was mostly music. Yeah.
Did you end up doing Rob Derrick's sound design class? That class had some amazing gems in it. Like he has this template that if you take the class, you have to learn how to lay out your sound design template. And if you use that template, you're set up for success. Yeah. And that alone is just an interesting idea, that just a template alone really sets you up for sound designing correctly. Yeah. Because the way the template is laid out, it'd be there's only certain ways that the mixing can be done, and it tends to lead you to the correct answer. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, ACM is a theme, obviously, that keeps coming up on the podcast, but it's like, you know, it's a valuable resource. I think even for people that like don't go there, but have just been like associated with people that are at ACM, like already get the benefits from that as well. So it's like, no matter what, like either go to ACM or find someone who does go to ACM and like,
because the resources available to you are just valuable, and they're not necessarily exclusive. You can find your way to properly, utilizing those resources at the ACM, even if you don't necessarily go there.
I want to ask you more music questions, but I want to get to the deep questions because I feel like there's a lot there. So like we'll talk more about the music questions on the next podcast. Sure. But deep questions, this is what makes bit depth. What is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Well, I grew up Presbyterian, and I was told that was the right way. And I was very spiritual. I prayed daily. One of the things I used to do was I pray to God whenever a ambulance drove by, and I would always pray for their life. And I thought, that's how you be thoughtful. And that's how you be a good person, is you pray, you talk to God. It was very Christian, very one straight road type of mentality from me growing up as a Christian, and all the way through high school too. And I really wore my Christianity on my sleeve and was trying to bring people to my church and take people to, camp and go to Christian sleepaway camp with me and go to Kanakuk, that sort of stuff. And I was very active until I was about 16 or 17, and then I was able to drive my car on my own and decide where I wanted to go to church. And then I started looking at other people's churches, and I'm like, well, they teach this part different. And then that sort of opened up the door to, there's a lot of different religions that have a lot of different, very valuable things to say that aren't incorrect about life, and have very valuable life lessons to teach us that you can't find from just one religion. And there are a lot of things in religions, like the cataclysmic flood, that is shared in a lot of religions. So they're clearly all right? Those religions all have that in common. It must have happened. Or at least it would lend itself, you could lend yourself to believe, well, if it says in these three religions that this great flood happened, then maybe there was a great flood. So I started having my mind open to the possibility of other religions, not just being accepted by me as a Christian, but also they're not wrong in their own right. You should not just accept them, but understand that they're not wrong, and you're not right, but that there is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not right. There is this spirituality that people believe in, and finding my place with spirituality after that became so much more vague, because at that point, I stopped kind of praying to God, and I started just thinking a lot more about spirituality as a whole. And, I stopped thinking that there is an omnipotent being that is listening to me, and started thinking more just globally, like maybe there is a force that set this all in motion. Trying to rationalize my scientific mind and my spiritual mind. I'm probably like 18 right about now, trying to rationalize all this stuff. I started looking into religions specifically that accept all religions. Like, I think Baha'i was a religion I looked at, and Unitarianism. Those two really are just accepting religions. Neither of them ended up being for me. I don't know. I'm just a weird kind of agnostic that thinks that there could be a greater power, but it's not a person or a dude, or, they don't have a direct influence. Yeah. And I don't think that there's if there's something shaping our universe, it's very gradual. It's a nudging force. It's not making decisions for us. Yeah. That's where spirituality is in my life. It's pretty vague. I usually keep spirituality off to the side. I take a Rick and Morty approach to spirituality. Oh God, please save me, God. Oh God, yes, I did it, God. F you, God. Oh, I'm the mess. I'm amazing.
Yeah, basically. But it's also both true.
I eat up spirituality when it's convenient for me, and then I kind of look at myself in disgust in my mind's eye for I don't know. I eat up spirituality when it's convenient for me in a nice convenient package that makes sense for my rationalized mind, but I don't believe like I used to believe.
Sure. Making it even tougher for you. What is your definition of God?
I didn't answer it. He's not a person. He's not a being. He could be a force, but I don't think he has as much. He could be a force. He or she could be a force. Or it, or they. The force is with me. I'd say if anything, if God is anything to me, it's some sort of force that has shaped the universe the way it is, the Big Bang, how life spawned from a puddle on Earth. I don't know. Not necessarily a guiding force, more like a spark that just happens. And it's... I hate the way I sound right now.
No, but I mean, these, like, yes, I'm asking you to describe the indescribable.
Right. But I mean, when I start talking about like deep spiritual stuff like this, I get straight up nervous. I think of the times where I was talking about this to my mother, or I was talking about this to my grandma, and you see that look of disappointment on your face when you're like, I don't know if I'm a Christian. And they're like, you're going to hell. I'm like, I don't think there's a hell. And they're like, you're definitely going to hell.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'll pray for you. And when I start thinking about these things, I think about how my parents are praying for me and how I don't think they're talking to anybody.
Yeah.
It all gets very frustrating, and I get in my head, and I don't deliver clearly.
You're fine. But like, the point is never to like answer the question. Right. The point is to get somewhere.
What sucks is in my philosophy classes at UCO, I really felt like I answered some questions and I got somewhere. You know, of course, and then the way philosophy works, you look back on it and you're like, you didn't answer those questions. You didn't get anywhere. But but it's like, I feel like I've been here. I feel like I had the right answers and they're in there. Yeah. So maybe we'll get some decent ones.
What is free will?
Free will.
This is one you can grab from philosophy classes.
All I feel like grabbing is the seed metaphor from the Bible, which, like, what is it? The seed, one side was light, one side was dark, and we planted the seed, and the metaphor is like the soul of humanity, and now we all have that sort of embedded in each of our beings.
That's a later question.
Oh, it is? What is free will? I feel like free will kind of goes back to, like, what is God, and, like, passion and that spark, that thing that created the Big Bang, the spark that made, you know, multicellular organisms from a pool, the spark that hits your mind and you feel like you've just been blessed with the best musical idea, that little God spark. Just a force. Yeah. Did I say force enough? That's free will and God, I feel like, kind of go really hand in hand.
Yeah. What do you think happens when we die?
That's an easy one. I think we're pretty much done when we die. I think this is my life. I better live it up because it's the one I get. And when I die, I think it's probably over. So I better be really happy with what I did here. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so into recording things and making things permanent. Yeah. I feel like that's with a lot of producers as well. We really want to make a lasting impression. We want this to be there after we're done.
Yeah. And for those of you listening back at the archive that is Bit Depth from however many years in the future.
Shout out to 2078, Chris.
Yeah.
Gonna be real old.
Shout out to like the aliens that are discovered some internet hard drive that somehow figured out how to play audio files and have it transmit to their like ear holes.
And now you're understanding the shout out in English. So that shout out to you aliens.
It took a lot of work to get to this point. So it's like, you know, we really got to acknowledge the fact that they really worked hard.
They put in the work for sure. They got that shout out. They deserve it. If I knew your name, I'd directly shout you out, but go for you. You go, alien.
How do you determine what good behavior is?
How do I determine what good behavior is? I feel like there's a lot more gray area and good and bad behavior than what people give it credit for, because you could see something as doing good, but it actually has a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of bad happening because of that. Or the butterfly effect. You do something that you think is just wholly good, and then later down the line, that was actually a really bad thing. If you hadn't have done that, then the dinosaurs wouldn't have come back and took over the earth. Shouldn't have helped that little girl who fell off of her tricycle get back up on her tricycle. Now the dinosaurs are taking over. How do I define how do I define what is good behavior? If it is gratifying to you and others, then it's definitely good behavior.
Cool.
If it make your parents proud, would it sully the good Lashley name if I did this? I probably shouldn't do it.
If you really value the Lashley name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Was there more in that, or should I
Nah.
go on? Okay. How do we reduce the division between people?
Through the internet, I've found that anonymity is actually a really good way to like reduce the division between people, because everyone's sort of like, if you have two anonymous people, what division do you have between them? When it comes to, communicating with each other, if you're just two anonymous people, who's to say that you couldn't communicate together and get along perfectly well, thus having, not much of a divide between the two of you? That's just like a modern take on that, but in reality, those people are extremely divided. They don't even know who each other are. But they could get together. Well, they might get together better than if they hadn't seen each other in person. Maybe they have some sort of weird hang up or caveat that's hard programmed into them, like so many people are, and they should probably fix that. But anonymity kind of protects them from themselves in that sense, that they can get along with someone.
Yeah.
The divide between people probably just people need to be more accepting of other people and just be more open, which is a hard thing for people to do when trust is so not easy. But I'm a very optimistic person. I feel like it's pretty easy for me to be open, so I'm biased on that.
Cool.
less judgment and just a little bit more accepting from people,
Yeah, definitely. Do you believe humans are evil by nature?
I've been thinking about this one recently because I feel like it was a comedian was talking about, hey, could you watch my kid for me this weekend? Well, that depends. Is your kid a little shit? And he's like, what? He's a child. Oh, yeah. Kids can be little shits. Let me tell you. So there are some that, some kids are little shits. and some kids are sweet little angels, and they were kind of inherently that way. And it wasn't necessarily the way that they were raised. They're only like, 4, but sometimes they can be little shits. I think all of us humans have at least a little bit of little shit in us, and maybe a little bit of us have a little bit more little shit in them. Are we inherently evil? Not in like the pure like evil sense. Again, that gray area thing, which comes into play a lot in my theories on God and spirituality and morality. I follow the gray area rule.
Yeah. What do you think humanity is heading towards in the future? You mentioned you were an optimist.
I am an optimist, but man, 2020 was not looking good for our future. But hopefully not just everyone wearing masks all the time and staying 6 feet away from each other and not hugging. That wasn't very fun. So now that we know that wasn't very fun, because, we could all just been floating around in little glass bubbles of iPad screens, in the future. Hopefully it's a little bit more, those floating iPad screens have a door so you can get out and actually give somebody a hug.
Yeah.
But
that flaming lips show,
right? That was actually really, really cool. And then there's the flaming lips show, which is really cool. Everybody's in their isolated bubbles. And then I saw this restaurant tried to do like an isolated bubble outdoor setup thing. Okay, now it's the summertime, so it's basically like you're sitting in a magnifying glass. You're sitting in a magnifying glass, just cooking in that bubble.
Yeah.
I would really like to see where's the future going for music. I would like to see more like VR like workstations, because I've seen some people making like music in virtual reality. That's kind of cool. It's a gimmick though, but how cool would it be to have like a real solidly built digital audio workstation that you could touch like a Raven console, but it's interactive. Yeah. You can really get into it with 3D. That would be really neat.
Yeah. There's this game called Dreams. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen Dreams.
Yeah. And
make a game.
They like delayed the game so that they could put a freaking DAW in it. Like
what? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it
didn't know there's a
basically has a DAW in it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see that really expanded upon and really perfected.
Yeah.
Perfect virtual reality DAW where you can grab audio files and shape them in a lot of different ways right there in real time. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of tools now, but it's like you got to really work for it.
Definitely. And I don't have VR or anything. Like I'm not even really into that content. That's just a cool idea.
Yeah. And then kind of the upward of that is what are you optimistic about for the future?
Well, Johnny Manchild stuff is definitely picking up a lot. And we just had that Play It Loud release just recently. We have a new album releasing November 5th, where we have an album release show at the Tower Theater. It's going to be awesome and huge. We've got people coming from out of state, maybe even out of country. There's some people in Canada that we're talking about coming down. So that's really exciting and kind of a lot of pressure. But I'm really excited for it. We don't really have any other shows coming up. So we've been recording this album. We didn't really play shows last year because of COVID. Yeah. We did some stream stuff like Play It Loud. Right. And then this year we only have the album release show planned. So I'm really optimistic about that show. And then after that, Johnny was talking about there might be a project that he needs to go work on out in LA. That might take him out of state with our drummer in January. So that's looking like an opportunity that could maybe spin for Johnny's benefit, you know, for either the Bastards or just Johnny himself, like to be able to go out in LA, and he's working on a pretty big music project. I don't know how much I can say about it, but it's going to be one of the bigger things that he's worked on. Yeah. And we're all very excited and happy for him. So I'm optimistic about that, although I'm going to miss him while he's in LA working on that project. We might still be doing the Poor Bastard stuff while he's out there. If we can swing it, we might not. We might hiatus. We're not sure yet. We're still working it out. It's up in the air. Yeah. But I am optimistic about it still. Yeah. And
you said he's also taking Ethan with him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So. He's taking our drummer Ethan with him too, and he's taking Isaac, who is a guitar player that lives with them and will probably end up playing with the Bastards sometime. Maybe he might play for the album release show just so we have another guitarist for the heck of it, because we're going to have a really, really big band on the stage at the Tower Theater. It's going to be really cool. And then, you know, while Johnny goes and does his thing, I'm going to do the lo-fi hip-hop thing. Yeah. And I've been debating on my lo-fi hip-hop name. Can I bounce one off you? Oh, yeah, sure. I play a lot of Super Smash Brothers. Yeah. And my handle has always been McNug with a question mark, MC Nug. Ah. So that's my ID for my lo-fi hip hop name. You know, people could call me either MC Nug question mark or like McNug. I don't know. That's my lo-fi hip hop name idea.
I like the fact that you have to say it with the upward inflection.
Absolutely.
Like I'm not McNug. I'm McNug.
McNug?
That's so good. But since you have the MC at the front, you are going to have to rap at some point.
Oh God. I don't know. I mean, I guess I did rap a little bit in that funk band that I was in New Mexico. We did a cover of the Gorillaz, but like funk. Yeah. And what was it?
I have also done a cover of that song.
Nice. I ain't happy. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Finally, someone let me out of my cage. I got to do that part, which is like, it was like the heaviest rap. It's awesome. I probably didn't do it justice, but I tried.
You can rap. And I mean, it's lo-fi hip hop, so it's like you got the beats already. Yeah,
with lo-fi hip hop style rapping, I feel like you could really just say anything sad and it works. Yeah. Even if it's like a happy kind of lo-fi hip hop song, it's just got to be like, go, you know, da 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 da, ba-ba. And that's like, then you just repeat that, and that's the whole beat. Lo-fi hip hop is just so beautifully simple.
Yeah, you take a sample and you iterate on it.
Yep. Take a sample, flip it, drums. Does it need anything else? Maybe, probably not.
Exactly.
And I like that it's just so effortless. That's one of the reasons why I like making it. I don't know what the finished product is going to be whenever I decide to approach to make a song. I'm finished in like an hour or two. And it's just very, like I said before, it's very cathartic, very relaxing.
Yeah. And if not for anyone else, at least for you.
Exactly. I've made so many tracks that nobody will hear that are lo-fi hip hop because they're awful, but they were so nice for me to make, you know?
Yeah. And not everything has to be for everyone anyways. What makes you content? You can also say lo-fi hip hop.
Right, lo-fi hip hop. Finishing projects.
Yeah.
Finishing projects. And like I'm very content right now because in my real life day job where I'm at OU Medical, I just finished wiring up an entire building. I have to go in and wire in closets, and I wired up an entire building, and I'm done. That's so satisfying. I'm very content with it. And that's exactly how I feel when I finish a song. Like it's almost the exact same amount of content. A year's worth of work on a building that was actually paying me thousands of dollars. Right. And then I spent an hour and a half on a lo-fi hip hop song. And I feel the exact same amount of relief.
Sure.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, although one of them gives you money, but
well, right. But it's not the money that makes me feel content.
Right,
it's the completion, the finishing of that stress that was on your shoulders.
Yeah.
My wife makes me very content. Our wedding was a dream. We got married on the beach. I sang the song that she requested to walk down the aisle to, and I got to play it on a brand new guitar that she bought for me without me even talking to her about it. That guitar was just the perfect wedding present for me, and I got to play her down the aisle on it. It was a dream. It felt like a dream at the beach. Yeah. Sydney and I met through a very musical way. I have to tell a story about my cousin real quick, because my cousin was a pedal steel and session guitar player. Okay. His name was Jason Lashley, and he did a lot of stuff with Oklahoma Christian. And there's a gentleman who's also in my family, a little bit more distant relative that I haven't met, named Bob Lashley, who works there, and they really batten down the musical community for Oklahoma Christian, and they did this thing called Summer Singers, where they would go and they would do worship music all across the country. And I really, really idolized my cousin. He taught me how to play guitar. He's definitely the reason why I joined the worship band that I joined in high school and middle school. He taught me every chord I know. And when I was like 18 or 19, I think. Gosh, I should know the age I was when I met my wife. But he asked me to go to Bell Labs Studio, which is a really cool studio that Trent Bell runs. And it's in Norman, and it is gorgeous. And I was blown away. It was my very first studio experience in a real professional studio. And I was just the runner. And I was like, I was definitely 19 because I couldn't buy beer, and I couldn't buy I was 18. I was 18 because I could buy my cousin's Copenhagen, but I couldn't buy the band beer. So they sent me with a note, and I got beer from the gas station and brought it back to the studio.
Good job, Norman.
Yeah. He was a gas station clerk. He looked at me. Okay. So that was my first session work. I was the runner for that session, and I answered my cousin's phone, and it was a gig. He was getting called to play a worship service in Midwest City as a sub for some church gig. He was just going to go play electric guitar, and I was like, "Hey, you're being offered a gig." He's like, "You take the gig." I was like, "Are you sure? You should talk to them." He's like, "Dude, just call it, work it out. I'm going to go back in the session." Okay, I took his phone, I took the gig, and that's where I met my wife, was at that gig. So because I said yes to that session, because I happened to answer his phone, and because he just was not feeling it, you can take it, I got to meet my wife. I saw her there in the audience. She saw me. We totally locked eyes because we had seen each other right before that, like the day before at Buffalo Wild Wings. I was sitting down. She was standing up. She walked in, and I was like, oh, my God. She's so hot. And she looked at me and was like, oh my God, he is staring at me. And then we saw each other again, and we stared at each other again while I was on stage and she was in the audience.
You got to be the hot one that time.
That time I was the hot one and she was staring at me. So we
but it was allowed because you were on stage.
So afterward, I definitely went up and initiated contact, and it was not long after that I serenaded her on acoustic guitar, and I totally sealed the deal there.
That's really why we play guitar.
Is to seal the deal.
3 more questions for you. When will you be satisfied?
Oh man, I'll be satisfied when I'm old, still playing guitar and still singing and still writing little songs, because that's when I know that I made the right choice. That's how I know, yes, this was the career path I should have chosen. This was what I was meant to do all along, because I can do this all the way until I'm no longer doing anything. Yeah. That's how I know. That's how I know I made it. It's not about getting big. It's not about it really even like being heard, although that's extremely nice. And it's awful to like make music and have it just make stuff and just have it sit there for you or for no one. But for me, it really is just about doing something that I can continue doing and that I enjoy and love. Yeah. And if I can spin that into something that makes me money or something that benefits someone else, then great. But that's not the goal. I'm here to just do it.
Yeah. Beautiful. What advice do you have for people in general? It can be as big or little as you want.
Do it! Go out and do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams! But really, it is to just find whatever motivates you to complete your task and don't stray from that. I'm a very ADHD person. I get distracted. Find what allows you to hyper-focus in a way that benefits you, in a way that benefits you as a musician, in a way that benefits you as a person. Whatever makes you feel like you're doing better for yourself. Maybe to take from Play It Loud, there's a little voice inside your head, right? I loved this line. There's a little voice inside everyone, and that voice is either speaking truths of healing you or hurting you. And it's whether or not we decide to listen to that voice, whether or not we decide to be motivated by that voice, whether or not we decide to, listen to it, write it down, ignore it. I say choose to be motivated by it, or listen to it and choose a path of healing, or let it motivate you to spin that into something creative. Spin it into something creative.
Yeah, definitely. Lastly, potentially, most importantly, cake or pie?
Oh, my wife is a baker. I'm gonna go with pie. I like a very specific kind of pie though, because my wife makes it and it's very, very good. And it's basically butter pie. It's called chess pie. Have you heard of chess pie before? It's something that my grandmother started doing for Thanksgiving in like 2010, and I can't get enough of it. It's basically, like I said, just like a really buttery, flaky pie with just kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like a strudely filling. It's like I don't know. It has an interesting generic pie texture. And then you put real whipped cream on top of it, and it's just so sweet and buttery and melts in your mouth. Chess pie, definitely my favorite.
We'll have to look it up. And I mean, people have described a lot of pies on here, and that sounds pretty interesting.
It's very simple, and it's hard. It's kind of easy to mess up, but totally worth it.
Cool. Chris, thank you so much for doing this with me. Where can we find you and your things?
Thank you, Santiago. Thank you for having me. You can find Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards at www.manchild.band. There we go. And of course, on Facebook, Johnny has a very active Twitter as well. We have a Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastard Discord, which is actually really, really active. Are you a part of it?
I'm not. I should join it.
I will send you an invite to that. Maybe we can like post an invite link to the Discord.
Sure, yeah. I have a BitDef Discord, which is like
cool.
15 people, but like
we'll swap Discords.
Yeah.
So www.manchild.band. We have a very active Discord. You can't really find my lo-fi hip-hop stuff yet, although I do have a Chris Lashley SoundCloud. That's not it's really just kind of like those lo-fi hip-hop experiments I was talking about earlier, not like super defined tracks, but it will be soon. And I will be changing the SoundCloud name from Chris Lashley to McNug. So McNug will be advertised and will be produced very soon.
Yeah. There's also the stuff on your Instagram, which is like...
Yeah, that's what McNug will be, yes. My Instagram, chris.lashley3, has the McNug beats on it right now. Those are definitely the best examples of the lo-fi hip-hop stuff I've been producing lately.
Yeah, and some cool video stuff with it, too.
Yeah, little snippets of the bastards shooting B-roll music video stuff, and then I put a little beat over it, or... there's a lot of water features and stuff around the OU Medical campus, and I get bored at my job walking sometimes 6 miles a day, and so I'll stop and shoot a little video and put it in slow motion and then make a beat.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of like the Vietnam flashbacks meme. Sorry to say that while you were drinking water. But just like the overlay of like...
I'm going to do that on the next beat now. It's going to be just like a nice translucent, the gray background thing that I've been doing. And then it's just going to be my face like 1,000 yards staring right into your soul.
Beautiful.
Like phase that face in and then stare into you.
Once again, thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Chris Lashley.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music and produce audio. I have an EP, a short album, that is streaming everywhere right now. It's called Soundbites. The music you're hearing right now is from Soundbites. Listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere else you stream music, or buy it on Bandcamp, because a single purchase is the monetary equivalent of streaming it all day, every day, for a year. I'm also working on another album, so if you'd like to hear that at some point, you can buy my music, or you can support me on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Santiago Ramones. Follow me on Instagram to stay up to date with all the stuff that I'm doing, both at bit.depth and at Santiago Ramones Music. There's also a Discord server in which we discuss deep topics from the podcast, but it's also a community of beautiful human beings. Go to santiagoramones.com/Discord to join. If you like the podcast, leave comments on social media, leave reviews by saying how much you like the podcast, and tell your friends about it. I really couldn't be doing this without you, and I am so very grateful to continue doing Bit Depth for this long. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting Bit Depth. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Love never fails. It's going to be okay. I might be wrong.